Hello, everyone, and welcome to the TFE podcast, the Total Franchise Experience, where fantasy is at its finest. And this is week 2 of this week in the TFE. I've got Tony of the Indians with me. Tony, I think anybody that's read the Discord today probably gets the idea already, but how is your week 2 going?
Oh, 1 second. Sorry.
He's shell-shocked. He's just utterly
No.
shell-shocked. That's how
So
it's
what
going.
happened? I had the YouTube video going, so I was getting reverb feedback, and I was like, "Shit, how do I get that?" Okay, now we're good.
I've done that.
Awful live video right there. Not the greatest, but let's see if you Darvish could be Cy Darvish.
I still say you had a pretty good scoring week for as bad as you say it's going.
It's just like
you still had a pretty good scoring week. I think there's reason for optimism.
Oh yeah, it is. I mean, worst case scenario, I'm 500. I was 7-1 last week. I'm going to get 1 win this week. That's what happens when you play bye week / the Cubs. No mention.
Boy, I will say though, at 260 points, and you're only the 19th. Scoring team.
That's what I was messaging about. Was like, I really think there's a lot of parity in this league.
You mentioned earlier how this feels. The TFE now feels a lot more balanced than the ABL did in year 1. And while it is still really early, I mean, just looking at this, I guess I kind of have to agree, because if you, not that this is the ABL cast, but if you remember back to early ABL, we had teams scoring under
single digit, and I think everyone is over 100.
Everyone's well over 100. Even the worst teams at about $150.
$190 for the Blue Jays.
I know
he's. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I wasn't on anything important. I was just saying I know for a fact that we had teams scoring under 100 points in year 1 of ABL, and that was pretty much a theme for at least 3 teams for the first few years. Maybe not under 100, for all 3 years, but we absolutely had multiple teams routinely scoring under 100 points that were just, guaranteed free wins for everybody that they were playing every week. And judging by the fact that you at putting up 260 are the 19th highest scoring team, and there's a couple that are really right under you, kind of does lend to the notion that maybe this is a pretty well balanced league. We're going to have, which we'll get to in a little bit, some teams that are clearly a step or 2 below, obviously where they'd want to be, and maybe a step or 2 below real competition, which brings up the question about punting and how early do you punt, and you know what, that's a fine segue. Let's just get into that right now. So you and I were talking earlier about making that a topic for the pod. It didn't get like a lot of play in the Discord or anything, but it's kind of something that we wanted to touch on, and like when and how appropriate is punting or whatever you want to call it, tanking, punting, and like how early in the year do you think it's appropriate and like optimal for the punting team to do, which there's no one set correct answer for like any. That's all purely opinion based. But what is your opinion, Tony, on like, I have a pretty strong opinion on the year 1 aspect of it, especially. I think if there is any year that you are going to try to punt early or really at all, it's this year 1 when there are no contracts, when you're really getting almost a full second bite of the auction apple in the year 2 auction, because of how wacky some of these salaries are. We're going to see a ton of star players dumped right back into the pool. So I'm personally a proponent on, if you think you see the writing on the wall already here in week 2, which I don't think there are very many teams that should, but how do you look at it?
I'm a proponent of you run your team how you want to. I know me and you have had this discourse back and forth. Some of you that I hate that we always keep referring back to the ABL, but there's a try hard. I've said this. There's a try hard method of or try hard, like everyone needs to try. I realize in a 30-team league, there's going to be teams who are playing for next year and the year after. Like it's just the way it is, unfortunately. It sucks because there's going to be free wins, and it sucks because you're going to look at it as, look, I'm a playoff team fighting for a playoff spot, and the team that I'm maybe fighting with towards the end of the year is going to get a softer schedule, and I'm playing all these teams who are trying hard. And you look at it as, oh my gosh, it sucks. Like everyone needs to try hard every week. I get it, but that's just the way sometimes the cookie crumbles, where you're going to go against a softer schedule 1 week and a harder schedule the next week.
So when you say trying hard, like that almost creates the illusion that like there might be teams that are like sitting players that are starting or something. I don't think that's.
I guess I mean by try hard is win now. Maybe another, like win now. Like every team has to win now. Try hard, win now. However you want. Like win now, maybe a better.
Which is a very ABL centric way of. I mean, we have, the ABL has rules in place that
no tanking, blah 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 blah,
are somewhat draconian. If you depending on who you ask, that we have a dump date. That your teams are not allowed to make trades that would be considered, dumpy or tanky or punty until June 1st, and you have to announce on the Discord, hey, I'm dumping, so if anybody wants to come and look at my guys, this is my 24-hour.
And the 24-hour window too thing, like you said, like
I'm not a huge fan of, and I'm on the EC of that, but I was a somewhat dissenting voice in that I don't like rules that dictate how other people can run their teams. The ABL had some wacky shit happen with, the Harry situation and teams punting too early. And we're thinking that maybe some guys were having an advantage because they just happened to be on Discord a lot more than other guys. So that's where the 24-hour thing came in. Announce it, give everybody a chance to make an offer if they want to make an offer, so that those guys that don't live on Discord have a chance at getting some good players. And now whether or not you think that's fair is really a separate argument. If Discord's going to be part of the league, you can't really say, well, you have to be on it this much, or you have to wait for everybody. I think that gets too much into the weeds, but that's kind of what ABO was trying to do.
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, like for example, Amrock just posted, blah, 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 Jose Barrios, blah, 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 blah. Jose Barrios would fall under the 24-hour. You have to wait 24 hours after you post him. I would believe.
Probably.
Probably.
Yeah.
It's such a subjective or whatever you want to call it, objective, whatever,
It's silly. I get why that was in place. It's a little bit silly now, a couple years down the road of looking at it and stuff, like it maybe a little more silly in retrospect than it was at the time. But this all comes back to the punting thing. Like, when is it okay and when is it not? I think, if we're going to be true, a free league, a free society of a league, punt whenever the hell you want. Run your team. To quote Sam, it's your money. It's your money that you're punting. We've all paid here. We all, if you're trading away draft picks, which I guess would be not punting, it'd be the opposite of punting, for some, but you have to pay for the next year. I'm a fan of run your team how you want to run it, and I wish there was a better word for it. Punting,
I guess
brings a lot of negative connotations with it. It sounds like a bad thing.
How about I add this?
Rebuilding, I guess. Sorry, go ahead.
If you are a punting, rebuilding, whatever team, and you are acquiring picks or minor league talent or whatever, I have no issue how you want to run your team. Because if you do leave the league, it's a lot easier to get a replacement owner because you have all these minor leagues, you have all these draft picks, you have all this stuff.
Sure.
I think the hardest thing is you have a team that goes all in, trades all their draft picks, trades all their minor leaguers, and has zero to build on, and gets third or fourth place and gets pissed at the league because they went all in and they lost. And now they have a
that's the opposite punch.
I know,
though. That's the
but
opposite of punch.
I'm bringing it full circle of
Sure.
a lot of times the punters get the bad connotation towards them, where sometimes it's the teams that go all in and may not have. I know in this league, I think everyone's paid up. I don't know. I try to police that a lot and say that on the Discord that, oh, you traded a first round pick, make sure they're paid up, because I think that leaves the league more vulnerable than the punters, because the punters are, I want to rebuild this and I'm ready and I'm committed because I've got all these draft picks. I've got all these minor leaguers. I've got all these cheap salaries. I'm ready to go for it. Whereas the flip side is these teams who go all in and trade every draft pick they have, trade all their first rounders, trade all their top prospects. And then we don't think to say, hey, you need to pay right away, and then it just gets put on the back burner and they get eliminated in the first round. Bad luck matchup, coin flip, whatever. They're like, shit, but go ahead. That's just mine.
I personally, I don't think I think
that's going to happen, but go ahead.
Yeah, one of the new guys in ABL, he took over the Giants from Josh. He had made some good points with regards to these the dump rules and stuff. And he's like, it seems like the reason this is in place, and he wasn't here for this. He's like, the reason this is in place is because this guy Harry, did some wacky shit in the year 2 auction and or the year 3 whichever one it was. But he's like, it seems like those rules are in place to prevent that from happening. But Harry is gone, so we already know that it's not going to happen again because he's not even around to do it. The more important thing is having the solid base of owners that you can be pretty sure aren't out to screw the league, for lack of a better term. And, bringing this back to me saying that I think if there's any time to be a punting team, to kind of look and see the writing on the wall and say, you know what, this auction, maybe I screwed it up. Maybe I screwed it up just with these couple guys. Maybe the injuries are mounting, if there's any year to kind of do that and look at yourself, say okay, I have assets right now that can bring me help next year or the year after, or even the year after. If you're talking about draft picks, like middle draft picks that might turn into something years down the road, this is the year to do it. Is year 1 is when nobody has a contract, when you're not beholden to anything, you're not going to trade for an asset that you are now tied to for the next 3 or 4 years or whatever. You get to make all your contract decisions, or you get to win new guys in the auction and then make those contract decisions a year later. And looking at a small handful of teams, that we have right now, and this is just looking at, of course, the record after year 1, I do think that there's clearly teams that know that they're on that path already, especially somebody like the Cardinals who came in halfway through the auction and is still struggling to make this team his own. I have no issue with any team right now. Even if you woke up tomorrow and decided week 2 didn't go the way you wanted, if Amrock, he's only going to be, whatever he's going to be. If he wants to blow it up and decide that he wants to go a new route in year 2, I'm fine with it. I'm kind of in line with Sam. That it's your money. Run your team how you want. I know there's in real baseball, we have corporate, antitrust laws and anti-tampering and all this kind of stuff that teams can and can't do. But they also can, they're at will to call up their own prospects and do stuff like that, where of course we are not. Our prospects are reliant on if they get called up in real life. But I think to the extent that we can, we should all be able to run our teams exactly the way that we want to run our teams. And I was one of the most vociferous when Sam and Amrock made the Cole trade. I was all over that shit. It's a league ruining trade. You shouldn't be able to. But then I also said, don't overturn it. I hated the trade, but I also didn't want it overturned. At the same time. So,
I'll say a real quick minute or so, and then we'll move on to our next topic. Is I really hated, and I'll preface this by saying, I really apologize to some of these people when we keep referencing ABL, but that's kind of the brainchild of where this league came from. I really hated that in year one, we had a team like Mark, and this, was able to completely punt, blah, 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 won 0 games. And then we said, okay, that's it. Boom. We're changing the rules, yada, yada, yada. It's this, and this. And then what happened in year 2, 3, or 4, everyone was like, oh, look, it's so easy. Mark went from last place to playoff team and yada, in 1 year. Well, yeah.
He was able to punt in a way that other people couldn't. Yeah.
Exactly. Like, that's why I want to say, like, I think this league is learning from what you could say mistakes that may have happened in the ABL. I think that was a big mistake that you say, look, we're not going to let a team punt, even though we allowed it throughout all of year one and didn't make any changes. And then he punted, and then look at the success story. Well, you can't brag about a success story when it was operating under different rules. So I'll say, what's topic number 2?
So that's some feelings on punting or tanking, whatever you want to call it, and just something else real quick. When I hear of like punting and tanking in like association with like real sports and stuff, I usually kind of think of that in my head as like these teams are diving to get a better draft pick, and I really don't see that as what's happening in especially leagues like this, because even if you land 1-1, it's still going to be a couple years before that player is really doing anything for it. It's not some like immediate success like it would be in football. If you tank to get 1-1 in football, you can draft a 1-1 in football that can carry your team, your dynasty team that very same season. Like football and baseball, not even remotely the same. I'm sure it can happen in basketball as well. Like rookies come in basketball and dominate, contribute right after being drafted. Baseball, it just really doesn't happen. It's very, very rare for these guys to give immediate contribution. So to call it tanking, it's a different kind of tanking. These guys are sure they're selling value now for future value, but they're not tanking to try to get. Some of these guys don't even have their own picks, their own first round picks to try to tank for. So
that's also what's kind of funny is one of the teams who we could say is tanking with the Blue Jays, because he's kind of been out there about it.
I call him a rebuild
but it's a rebuild.
He's not even a rebuild because it's year one. It's not like he's tearing some great foundation down and rebuilding. Yeah. He's just he's deviating, he's altering course.
And he's even said, like, what I wanted to say with that to add on to your point was, he's even said, I don't want my first pick. I don't want my picks. He's even said in Discord, like, I don't even like owning my own picks. Like the fact that a guy who realized
the hedge against himself or whatever, whatever you call it.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's some tanking thoughts. So something that actually did get brought up in the Discord this week and generated a little bit of rub was the trading of a first round pick for $13 fab dollars. It's again, like we just kind of talked about, say that pick ends up being 1-1, it's still going to be a considerable amount of time before we have any idea, especially like dollars wise, what that pick is going to have been worth. What it was worth a couple days ago was $13 fab dollars. So, I mean, I don't think this was like is it cool or is it not to trade picks for fab, but rather like what should and what is the value, I guess, at probably different points of the season. I'm sure it fluctuates a lot. Like, what do you see the value of various, say, like a top, and it matters with draft class too. If it was this last draft class, a top 5 pick was worth much more than, say, this next draft class top 5 pick. I think this next class, at least to me, falls quite a bit short of this last one. So, like, are you a proponent, Tony? If you had known you could have had that third or that first rounder for $14 fab dollars, would you have offered it?
Well, this goes into that, like you saying that to me goes into my counter argument, or however you want to say that. I only had 12 fab dollars. 12. That's it. That's all I had is 12 fab dollars. Like, what fab is worth is kind of a sliding scale at this beginning of the year. We had Fabapalooza, which, yes, that's a one-time thing. And we had this discourse between me and Steven, like, well, what is a fab dollar worth? Is a fab dollar worth more now, or is a fab dollar, more worth later? Like, right now, a fab dollar is worth a little bit more than August 15th. I'm just throwing out a random.
But it's worth considerably less than it was just a few weeks ago.
Correct. So it's on a sliding scale. As the year goes on, the less the dollar is worth. In week 2, the dollar's worth a little bit, because I see what you're saying with the whole, it may not be worth as much now versus a month or 2 ago, whenever we did Fabapalooza. I get it, because you needed those
just
dollars.
Look at the wire right now. I mean,
there's nothing. I get it.
It's garbage. Yeah.
But that's expected. You know that if you've been in a 30-team league with the same setup, you're not going to get anything. But there's some of these teams who have nothing left for fab. That are
true too.
I've
got 0 myself.
Fab claim budget. Okay, let me go through this. I'm not calling out these teams at all. I'm just going through the teams who have single-digit fab right now. Okay? The Red Sox have 5. The Cubs have 3. The Rockies have 9. The Astros have 1. The Dodgers, you know how much you have. It's less than all the rest of the teams. Yeah, 0. The Pirates have 6. The Padres have 5. The Giants have 7. The Cardinals also have 0. And the Rays have 1. That's close to a third. What? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 10. That's a third of the league that has less than $10. So would have been immediately eliminated from offering 13 fab dollars.
Sure.
Would
you, if say you had 15, say you were sitting on 15 and you knew the high bid for that first round pick, which was the Astros first round pick, who looked like a
good team,
contender for number 1 team, for the rest of the season. Well, they did just lose Bobby Miller. So maybe that finally puts a chink in the Astros armor. But if you knew the high bid was 13 and you had 15, would you have offered 14 for what could very easily be 1.30 next year?
No.
Leave yourself with 1 fab dollar the rest of the year. Yeah, you can trade from, or you just made a trade for fab, but leave yourself with 1 remaining. Go 14 for the Astros pick.
No. I want to have at least $10 left over.
That's fair. You can tell I don't care about that. I mean, I grabbed the guys that I thought had value, and if I want fab, I'll figure out a way to trade for some. I'll trade a prospect for fab. I'll trade a pick for some fab if I feel like I really need it. It hasn't really come up yet where there was somebody that I was like, oh my God, I need to take a shot at this guy. I mean, there's been a couple of times where I wish I had $1 or 2. Don't get me wrong, but
none of these guys are going to be difference makers that you're probably going to sign to long-term contracts. But some of these guys may be able to fill in holes to win a game or 2 or 3 or whatever. And that win or 2 or game or 3 or whatever makes a difference when we come playoffs.
Yeah, that could make a huge difference. So yeah, in that context, fab, whatever, $1, $2, $3 fab was very valuable for me in week 1. I had the Ryder Ryan and Brian Hoeing combo, put up something like 30 something points, which probably won me a matchup or 2, so those few fab dollars brought me tremendous value. I didn't know it at the time, of course. And, you really can't plan or map that stuff out, but it's all relative, you could have used Fab to pick a guy up that you then trade, 3 months later, and that brings you something like the way the baseball works, especially with picks involved and stuff. It's all so far down the road. There's so many second and third and fourth order consequences, especially when you're in, the deeper the league, especially a league like this, the more trading there is, like the more interwoven strands there are to every like dollar that's spent, whether it be Fab or in the auction or whatever. It just, they spider off a lot of different ways.
Or even contract difference. Some people may not look at it this way, but if you trade away X, Y, and Z and get X, Y, and Z back, but the X, Y, and Z back is $7 cheaper than what you traded away, that makes a big difference as well. Absolutely. I know we're not offering contracts obviously now, but you can pick up a Fab player too, or maybe go for a big, I don't know, Yordan Alvarez was mentioned in the Discord. Like, you could go for a big bat like that at 36 or whatever he was, if you save a few bucks here and there with every trade,
fairly priced.
Yeah, you can go after a big bat like that.
So I mean, Fab for a first, I don't think it's that crazy. No. I mean, again, stuff's all subjective.
It's all relative to what the team has, and two teams. It's not just a static.
It's very contextual. It's very contextual. It really depends on how and the further you get away from the trade, the more difficult it is to go back and look at the trade fully in context, because other rosters have changed. Matchups have won or lost. Guys have gotten hurt or whatever. Like it's really difficult to go back and look at this stuff with 2020 vision, even though it's all there to look at. It's just, you can't go back and look at 30 teams and see, okay, well, how did this affect? Because he got this guy in the trade, but then a week later he traded him to this guy for this guy. And then this is the guy it really ended up being worth. You could say, oh, $13 Fab bought you Yordan Alvarez, essentially. Like, it's like, sure, in a very plain breakdown, I guess you could draw those lines, but that's really not how it ends up being, and it's a little bit disingenuous and I don't think really anybody was trying to literally say that, but sometimes it can look that way, like it can, like, well, if I could have just had Yordan for 13 Fab, of course I would do that. Nobody's trading Yordan for 13 Fab.
Correct.
Why would you do that? Because you'd rather have Yordan than anything Fab can get you. But, that pick can be a lot of different things. That pick could be a piece to use in another trade down the line. It will turn into a top 30 player, presumably. And it's just, there's a lot of ways these trades can be cut. And just thought it might be fun to kick around a little bit, because it got a little bit of rub in the Discord. So, that's that.
Did we want to end with the fun topic or do the fun topic now?
Man, we're already at 30 goddamn minutes.
Yeah.
Let's do a little bit more of the recap.
Yep.
And then we'll end on. So check out, I was just talking about the Houston team, dominating again. Shout out to the Devil Rays for putting up what is essentially 400 points. So now we see in week one, the scores were a little bit inflated because it was a week and a half scoring period. This is our first, which is kind of why I said, the start of what should be normalcy. This is just a full week scoring. So we can see what the high end scores are going to be in this league, high 300s, low 400s. But yeah, like, shout out to the Rays for.
But there's a big
monster number.
Like, look at what 5. Oh, I'm gonna say 5. That's
playing 5. Yeah.
5, no, the Brewers, sorry, versus the Astros. Like, that's a pretty big difference.
There's a gap there, yeah. But they just, again, the Astros are kind of riding hot now. Like the hot bats. The guys like Triolo, I think, kind of went off. I mean, he's just been putting up 4 points every day. Yeah. He's riding still 5.5 from Spencer Steer, from William Contreras. He's doing it with the bats. Yordan's been insane.
I mean, look at his injury. Look at those injuries. Jung.
And he just lost Bobby Miller. He just
lost Bobby Miller. Okay, Silseth too. Silseth Chase. I don't even know how to go down the pitcher from the Angels. That guy.
This is a very
Wasn't he a
tough
starter?
team. Yeah, he's a starter.
Yeah, I mean, you lost 2 starters, and you lost Lou Bob, Eloy, and Josh Young.
Yeah,
man,
and still puts up 400 plus.
You know,
yeah, very good team.
This is prime example of depth matters. How many teams could sustain Eloy, Lou Bob, Josh Jung, Silseth, and Bobby Miller?
And he still hits 76 games played.
Yeah.
Puts up 5.45 points per game, which has got to be number 1 on the week. It is Texas at number 2, but only
balanced hitting and pitching. Almost perfect balance.
Yeah, perfect balance. Yeah, like Thanos' knife. Yeah, perfect balance. Oh, man. Yeah, just another crushing week. From the Astros. Your games played leader was the Devil Rays, so 4.65 per game, which is very, very good. 86 games played, which is very good. So you can see, again, on a regular full scoring week, your high end on games played, mid 80s, low 80s, high 70s is kind of where you really want to be. And then these teams that just don't have the guys, just don't have the guys in the lineup are in the 50s, 60s, low 60s, but a lot of teams in the 60s here, right? Kind of a glob in the 60s, and some fine performing teams. The Royals at 4.62 put up 314 points with only 68 games played. Pretty impressive. The Rangers, at 71, low 70s, right there with me. So, I mean, kind of all over the place.
He got me at 75, a few above you guys.
But a solid glob. You want to be in the 70s. Seems like you want to be in the 70s to be, safe. There's a very close match. Looks like I'm going to hang on against the Boston Red Sox. Been fighting them. Been slugging all week, me and the Red Sox.
He had a brutal week 1. What was week 2?
Week 2, I think, is looking better. But
he lost to you. He lost to the Royals.
Red.
Yeah, 6-2.
Red Sox.
6-2 is what I'm seeing.
Oh, that's period 1. I was going to say he didn't put up 427. Yeah,
go to scoring. I like this format better. Go to the scoring underneath the home on the left. See your scoring
under the left. Boom.
Scoring, and then you can select the team.
Go to Boston Red Sox. Yeah, let's see how he's doing.
And I think he's looking at a 6-2.
Going to beat the Mets. Going to beat the Giants. Going to beat the Reds.
Yeah.
Going to beat the Angels, Marlins. And the Jays. Yeah, he's going to take 2 losses. Yeah. So, to go 1-7 and then go 6-2 the very next week. Shout out to the Red Sox. Played me very tough. And if it wasn't for Captain Jack getting that quality start, I would have lost. I would have lost to the
Does he have anybody left? He has 0-0.
I don't think so. I think he's pretty much done. Gabby Moreno didn't play. Young is done. Yeah, he's pretty much done. So, good matchup, but I think I'm going to pull it out.
And then the flip side is you have a team like me who goes 7-1 and is looking at 1-7.
Yeah, you went the other direction. But it's that's the trials and tribulations of a league like this. Especially a league like this where point scoring, some funkiness. Some.
I mean, I don't want to say
it's on the pitchers.
I don't want to say
it's not over. You've got Darvish going.
I've got Darvish, who's got 2 outs with a runner on second here, and he's only got 14 pitches. If he can, get whoever this guy is, who's an all-star, I'm sure, because it's
so as of right now, without factoring in the rest of the game tonight, we have 8 teams. With me barely getting there, that scored 300 plus, and essentially 2 that scored 400 plus. 1, in reality. But that's definitely your upper echelon is going to be the high 300. The Braves, again, had some injuries, I think, from last week that he's still fighting. But the hitting really carried him. The pitching, a little.
He destroyed me this week
for the Braves. Your top hitting team is, again, the Atlanta Braves. I think that is 2 weeks in a row that the Braves sit atop in hitting. Your top pitching team is the Devil Rays. Man, 2 teams go over 200 pitching points. The Rangers pretty close there. The Giants not as close, but then there's a bit of a gap to the Brewers when you get that 150 and below range. But yeah, two teams over 200 pitching points, pretty studly. We already looked at the Astros. Yes, he did just lose. They just lost Bobby Miller. That's going to hurt. I mean, he was a stud. Hopefully not too bad. I do have a couple shares myself, so kind of hoping the Bobby Miller injury is not too bad. But man, he's another one of these guys that throws super hard, and it seems like that always is bad news when one of those hard throwers goes down with anything.
Who was the
Tigers
other
having a solid?
Correa.
Correa, yeah, Carlos Correa. That's going to sting Oakland a bit. Cody Bradford, Milwaukee was probably using so far Cody Bradford, so that's going to hurt a bit. And the Braves are going to lose Marco Gonzalez, so another little injury for the Braves. You're getting a couple guys back. You're getting your outfield depth back.
I might be losing one. Well, I think he's good, but I thought I was going to lose Chaz as I gained Lars Bar, but that just goes to show one of those things. Like you need to have depth matters. Like that's all.
Depth matters.
We look at the Houston Astros and people have said, "Oh, we've heard," and I forget who it says, and I'm really not calling out the person personally because I forget who it is, but. Well, injury luck matters too. Well, yeah, it does. But I mean, look, we got the Astros here who had not the greatest injury luck. I mean,
yeah, man, there's a masterclass on how you build a team that can withstand injuries. Yeah, because boy, this team has done it.
That's easily everyone could agree a frontline starter with Bobby Miller, right?
But now, see, I agree with that, but. The question is it sustainable? Is, say, 20 points per game from Aaron Savali sustainable? I don't think it is. Is 20 points a game from Bryce Miller sustainable? I mean, maybe the splitter is that good, but I mean, the Astros have a lot of guys that are really hot at the right time. From bats to arms. They are going to get smacked with regression eventually, but does that just mean instead of a 410-point week, it's a 360-point week and still pretty much, dominating most of the matchups? Mm-hmm. And these injured guys are going to come back eventually. Young's going to come back. Lou Bob's going to come back.
Yeah. Eloy.
You hope Bobby Miller's going to come back. Yeah. So this is a monster team. They are at 327 cap dollars, so still some room to grow if they want to.
Hold on. Scroll back down to what you had. Where are they going to grow from? They have no picks to give.
Yeah, but they have a lot of players to give.
They do. Yeah, they do. But I'm just saying,
they have plenty of depth to deal from. If somebody, if the trade deadline comes around and they think, oh, you know what, this outfield after Jordan's looking a little weak, we don't want to lean on Harold Ramirez and Lawrence Butler, and somebody will want an arm and give an outfielder. And these guys, especially if these guys come back healthy, are going to have a surplus. It's not just about picks, and we didn't even get into their prospects and if who might like some of these prospects. But there's some upper line, Pete, AJ Ewing, I kind of like personally. Trey Morgan, I like personally. Like there's, not guys that are going to bring back, Julio Rodriguez or anything, but because I'm not selling low on him. But, I think that this is definitely a team to look out for.
Have you had any inquiries to your talent?
No, not really. The Cubs, I think, kind of didn't realize that I was when I said J-Rod's on the block or whatever. He hit me up. He's like, I need a center fielder and I've got cap space. It's like, he's not really on the block. I'm not going to sell low on Julio Rodriguez because he's been shitty for 2 weeks, But I haven't had a lot of. I'm difficult to trade with. I think people get that and tend to not re-inquire.
Who was?
No, I haven't had a lot of.
I think it was the Giants posted a message like, "Look, I went 1-7 or 2-6 in week 1. Like, I'm not just
doesn't mean I'm giving these guys away for
it doesn't mean like I think sometimes people will misconstrue hot stove meaning I'm giving them away for pennies. just because I'm posting someone on the hot stove doesn't mean I want to give them away for.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's like I'm not.
Unless your name's
I know,
Alex Lang. Sorry.
I think you've in the past at least been a proponent of just come at me with your best offer.
Yes.
And I am not a guy that wants to start with my if I go negotiate for a car at a dealership, I'm not starting with my best. I'm going to try to save a few bucks. Always, you don't start with your best.
But what I'm going to say is the flip side of that is I get it. Don't come at me with your best, blah, 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 like you said. But then don't come crying when I accept another offer because you didn't give me your best. Like, there is a balance here, okay? You know what I'm saying? Like,
going back to the dumping stuff, I think in ABL especially, that some of the anger at the perceived dump trades, especially when Harry was doing it, came from guys that were upset that they thought they didn't get in on it. That they didn't get in on it. That I didn't know you were going to sell so and so for that. I would have offered better than that. And now all of a sudden we need rules to prevent that from happening. Like
that's I agree 100%. Because
it's slippery, man. It's slippery.
It is. It is because people will say, like you said, well, I would have given more than that. Well, then why didn't you offer that? Like it wasn't
I think I would have given more, but the guy receiving it doesn't like what I'm giving, so he doesn't see it as giving more. Only I really see it as giving more. It's again also subjective. That's why we should just be able to run our teams the way we want to run our teams.
And I think some people might realize this because I've had trade talks with people. I've said, look, like I want to match up, but we don't. Like you don't have the depth.
It's gonna happen.
Yeah, like, and that part happens. I don't want to say the teams this has happened to. They know who they are. Like some teams just don't match up. It's a roster construction. It's a my needs versus what you need versus what you're willing to give. Yada yada yada. And how much are you willing to give to get off of that? It is what it is.
It's all contextual. It's all relative. It's all subjective.
Do we end under a fun
That's what
topic?
makes it fun. I want to save that because we're already at about 45 minutes.
Okay.
And that's going to take us up to like an hour, and I don't want to go an hour.
Oh, I was going to go like 2 minutes on it, but that's fine.
There's no way. That's not possible. It's just not possible. We'll save it because I don't want to blow through it. I don't want to blow through it. I don't want it to just be, a fart in the wind. But so we'll save it. This was, we didn't dig up a lot of super interesting stuff for week 2, but this has been your this week in the TFE week 2. We're still ironing this out. I would like to do a little bit more on the actual recap of the week, but it's difficult to do that while it's still going on because you don't have those, especially the records. They're not set yet, so you can't look at it in the fan tracks. So. It's maybe we'll have to figure out a better way to do that.
Like it's schedule thing because for me it's either Sunday or Wednesday that works perfect. And Wednesday to me seems too late to try to ask you to do a podcast, and Sunday might be too early.
So. Wednesday for the week before is because we're already halfway into the next week, and nobody cares about the week before, anymore. Like it's not fresh enough. So
I might have to try like a Monday at like 9 o'clock, 8 or 9 o'clock, because I could try to make that work.
We'll figure it out.
Hey, like I said, our best is yet to come. You said don't oversell it. I think our best is yet to come with this podcast.
Well, I think what you did was promise that they would get better, and that's what I did not want.
I think this week's is better than last week's because I'm way more sober this week than I.
It's like I told her, that's why things work with me and my wife. I told her after like our second date, it doesn't get any better than this. I'm never going to get any better. So once I knew she was cool with that, that's how I knew that I should marry her because I already told her I'm just what I am. I don't improve at all. I can't promise improvement. Maybe I will, but I'm never going to promise improvement because that sets expectations too high. And we know what this is. We've already went another 3 minutes talking about how much we suck. So,
hey, we do have one thing, which is good barstool camaraderie, and that will always carry over. no matter.
I hope so. I hope so.
We said
All right.
45 minutes was our max. We're right there.
Yeah,
So.
boom. This is week 2. Thank you, Tony. Thank you, anybody that watches. Good luck in week 3, and we'll see you on the next one.